Welcome to one of the last sessions for droidcon. We'll be talking today about open source community building and maintenance. But first, we'd be interested on who knows what FOSS is, what free open source software is. Just raise your hands. Okay, thanks. Who of you uses different open source software in everyday's life? Okay, still respectable. And who of you is a contributor or maybe maintainer of a FOSS project? Okay, thanks. So in our session, we'll be first introducing ourselves, and then we'll be talking what is FOSS. Furthermore, we'll try to dive into the values and the community or different community governance models. Furthermore, we'll try to push you or encourage you to move on from laissez-faire to more participation in the development of different open source projects. Furthermore, we'll be talking about the dark side in FOSS, which is most seeable in the forms or different forms of exclusion in the FOSS community. And hopefully when we have time, we'll have a small groups discussion at the end. So we would like also to hear your opinions on the different topics we've to introduce. So at first, about myself, I'm Andreas Hazim, also known as Machiavelli in the FOSS community, a human factors student, but also involved in research on participatory design of AI systems at the Nexus Institute. Furthermore, also a facilitator on different topics of political education at Freiwilligenagentur and Hiwarat. But why I'm standing here is because I am the founder of the Neo Collective, which is an open source collective with 3 developers, 5 apps, and 3 of those apps were previously abandonware, which is one of the focus points that we try to push on, which is more or less sustainability of open source. To our community, around 1,000 persons belong to this community throughout all those projects. So I'll give it to you, Izzy.
Yeah. I'm Andreas Rehberg, also known as Izzy in the open source world, and not only in the open source world, but since the time of my university studies. I'm an IT consultant. I'm active with open source for 25 years now, more or less, rather more than less. Oops, that was the wrong button. Other way around. This way. I'm the founder and maintainer of Izzy on Droid, so I'm also known as Izzy on Droid sometimes. Izzy on Droid is a repository for open source apps, like many of you may have heard of F-Droid already before, I hope so at least. Yeah, Izzy on Droid runs on F-Droid software, just with a slightly different focus. I'm a long-time F-Droid contributor and one of the maintainers at fdroid.org, and I'm the author of several books on Android, but unfortunately, to your great disappointment, not targeted at developers, but at those who are using the devices to get a better feeling for them and know better how they can operate them. So at this place, I would usually introduce, not I would introduce, but she would introduce herself. No. Sylvia would be our third speaker, but unfortunately Sylvia couldn't come because she caught COVID in the last a couple of days before, and that brings me to one point that would originally go later in our demonstration. What is important also for community building and for community maintenance is to take care for each other in your community, to respect each other and to make sure everybody feels safe in your community. And that is why Sylvie decided not to come, because the interval between her first negative test and meeting us would have been too short. So she decided to protect us and stay home. That's a great sacrifice for her, and we miss her really, really very much. We would love to have her here among us. Sylvie is also an IT consultant like me. She has more than 10 years experience in open source. And maybe who of you knows Katima? One? Okay, card team has a card wallet for all your cards for your companies and whatever you use there, you can store them and get some refunds and whatever, and more. She has also Race to Answer, and she's lead developer, and she was previously also a long-term F-Droid contributor, and now is involved with Is on Droid, which I introduced before. Which brings us to the next question, what is FOSS? FOSS sounds like an amboss, like a hammer, something like that. It runs with many names like FOSS, FLOSS, OSS, and FLOSS has nothing to do with the T's. It's free, libre, open source software. So it means, what means free? What does free mean? It does not mean you get free beer, but you get liberty. That's the L, libre, liberty. Software that respects the user freedom, and is open source means the source is available not only to look at, but it's available to the public and free to be used in the way you want to use it. So don't think of it like free beer, rather think of it like free speech or liberation. The basement for that is the so-called 4 freedoms of open source software, like you can find it, for example, at Wikipedia, from Richard Stallman, who proclaimed them. Going from 0 to 3, you are developers, you know why we start with 0 here. Yeah, the first freedom is you can run the software for any purpose. You don't need to ask somebody, can I use it for that? You can run it for any purpose. You can study the source code and modify it as you like, because it's free and libre. You have the liberty to study and modify it. You can distribute it in its original form, but also with your modifications. And if your code is modified, the modified version must also be distributed as open source. That is the idea behind libre, free, libre, open source software, that you have all the freedoms and can give it to others also to participate. You have a community, so you have values, and there's a governance. There are different governance models we have in the open source world. So first, what brings you to do open source? There are different motivations behind it, which also gives open source a value. That's first is like scratch your itch. That means you need some software for some topic and you can't find it, so you write it yourself and you use it. And you decide, if I can use it, others can use it as well, so you make it free and open source. You enjoy learning. Where to do better learning than with open source, where other sources are available to learn from. You have the need for creative impression. Nobody is pressing you. You can do with your open source software what you want in the way you like it. And since you use FOSS, has how many hands open, we're using FOSS, you thought about maybe, well, I can use it, they gave it to me, I want to contribute something back to it, which is possible even if you are not a developer. We will see to that later. There are some issues. We have the values now, values and issues. There was a study made for collecting information from more than 1,000 open source projects, focused more or less on the Linux world. And they aggregated the results and found out that more than 93% of the contributors were male. So it's a very male-dominated world, which is not so good. I had a very great experiences with more female crew. So, yeah. Over 30% of the contributors living in North America, the US and Canada, more than 35% in Europe, and less than 15% in the Asian and Pacific room, where much more people live. What surprised me a bit, over 50% of the participants were paid contributors. So they got paid for making open source, which pretty much makes sense. If your company runs open source software, the company has an interest that it's maintained and its security patches are applied and so on. So it's a very good idea. We had that in the previous slide already, to give something back. And if you're a company, best is to keep the projects alive, which you need. Less than 30% of the contributors work in non-technical fields. That means their job was in non-technical fields, but they still were able to contribute. From this study, the bottom line was from the motivations, I enjoy working with my peers, so I have a good community, obviously, and with my community. And I believe in the mission of FOSS, of open source, or in the particular area I contribute to. There are different projects, different sizes, and so there are also different governance models. How is a community run? How is a project run? You have top-down, bottom-up, community-driven. The biggest projects in the Linux world are Ubuntu, Debian, and Arch. That's the examples also from that from a study here. And Ubuntu, we know we have a benevolent dictator on top who runs a company and has a final word on it. In Debian, it's more democratic. Everybody has a say and they make the elections. And in Arch, it's more meritocratic, if I get that right. Who knows the stuff can do the stuff. And the goals are different. Ubuntu has as a favorite goal or most important goal, usability and advocacy, while Debian focuses very strong on free software principles, so no non-free, no proprietary stuff. We want to focus on free stuff. And well, for Arch, it's what the people on Arch are interested in. This has implications also on the software that results from such structures. If you take a look, how does it translate, how does community governance model translate into the software that is run by it? If you take a look at Ubuntu, I hope that's big enough here. The interface is, we want usability, so everyone should be able to use it. So you get graphical interface, the focus is on graphical interfaces. Yes, there are also server editions, but the main product for the desktop is very clear and easy to work with. If you look at Debian, free choices, you can use a graphical interface, you have graphical interfaces, you have text mode interfaces, you have the freedom to choose from. And if you're looking at Arch, it's very easy to work with if you know how to work with. If you don't know, you have to learn how to work with. Yeah? So different models translate different, also on your software and on the design. Of course, in such groups, there are conflicts, or sources of conflicts. So what are usual sources of conflicts is different needs and different goals. I want something different than you, so we have different targets and we have different motivations. And so it could be that Tony and I work on one project and clash for some point, and we have to solve our conflicts. So conflict solving is something that is very important in the community, because if you have many conflicts, your project is going to, well, not proceed, because you have just to deal with the conflicts. So how to solve conflicts depends very much on the structure you have, on the governance model, and how your community is structured. Preferably, you should solve the issues directly between the persons, the people that have a conflict. So if I have a conflict with Tony, I would first seek to say, hey, come, let's go for a beer, let's discuss how we can solve that. If that's not possible, you need somebody who mediates. Somebody Tony and I trust, say, Sylvie, please help us, we can't solve the situation. And Sylvie says, well, sorry, I give up. No, we have to look for. Bigger communities should have something like a community council, where we can go and can say, we can't solve the problem, please help us, you have the position to, you make the decision for us. The community council says, Izzy, shut up, you are wrong, let Tony do. Okay, problem solved. Or I don't accept it, we need to move it on, like a board of directors if you have some. And well, if there's no institution left anymore, we're speaking of open source, in the worst case, you can fork. You can fork the project and start a copy of the project. But you need to be aware, the bigger the project is, the more complicated is a fork. Because if you need for the original project 50 maintainers, you can't do that alone. We have examples of such forks which went very well. Who of you knows Redis? Who of you who know Redis have heard about the problem that Redis had recently? Oh, that's much fewer. Yeah, let's put it that way. Benevolent dictator decided to have another license. Community was not happy. Community forked. Easy, because the benevolent dictator was left behind. The entire community moved to the new project called Valky. And every business said, oh, cool, let's take Valky. So the benevolent dictator was left behind and the project survived. We had another case more than 10 years ago, no, about 10 years ago with Ubuntu, when, no, more than 10 years, when they introduced results from Amazon when you did a desktop search. That was we were not very amused as those who used it. So the French people forked it and patched that out. And Canonical finally said, oh, guess we went a bit too far. Come on, we merge your fork back in and we are friends again. So it returned. The fork was just for 1 or 2 versions, and also that works. So forks can be a solution for conflict solving. And now we get back to the picture we had before, just there's 1 column more, as you see. We totally forgot about, or not we, the one who did the study, forgot about there's very small communities, single developer communities, or small development communities, where you have just 1 person running it. So we have one, benevolent dictator, because the decision is all made by the 1 person who runs it. There's no selection of boards because, it's just 1 person. But it's easy to fork, because if it's just 1 person can run a fork. The orientation plays a big role here. If it's a take it or leave it, I wrote something for me, you can use it, but I don't want to accommodate your wishes. It's just for me, you can use it. Fork it, run it in your way. Or it's something like running for the community. I want to do it for the community. I want to help the community. Such a person is more likely to accommodate the wishes of the community. The goals also depend on that orientation. If it was something like scratching my itch, or was it learning, fun, was it community support? That depends on who founded the project, who was running it.
So, we just talked about the motivations, our motivations, also motivation of other community members. This could lead to all different type of conflicts, but we as maintainers maybe, or maybe part of the closer circle of the development of the projects, have the option to let people do what they want to do. In a sense, laissez-faire, just let people do. Or maybe we can do more, just engage the community and go to the community and ask them, what do you want? So in this part, we'll be talking about, at first, this state of laissez-faire. So at first, we'll have to make non-technical contribution possible. For instance, most of our open source projects are totally community translated. The community contributes the whole translation, and most of the projects are translated in more than 20 languages, which is, for smaller projects, really a huge accessibility win. Furthermore, we have to open communication channels for questions, but also for the communication between different users and community members. At the instance of contributors, when someone comes with an idea that maybe you didn't plan to, but nevertheless doesn't conflict with your plans, maybe just say, okay, you can try, you test it. Maybe this person will give up after 1 week. Maybe this implementation will end up after 2 years. But maybe this contribution will be a win for the most users that you have, given that you are making something for users and not building things only for you. So in an approach to go to the community, to engage with the humans and not only the users, is human-centered design, which is standardized under ISO 9214, and this all number, and which is iterative, community-driven, multidisciplinary development kit aiming into engaging with human and not only the users in a sense of usability, rather also considering all those values in that process. One of the Bibles for the most practitioners of human-centered design is this field guide by IDEO. And to put things in context, the aim or the main goal of applying such a process is to understand people's problems and design real solutions, and not come up with an idea that, yeah, this is a solution for a certain problem that in a certain domain that I don't really understand, but I think this would be useful. Rather, go to the people, ask them, is this really an issue? Maybe you'll discover another issue. Maybe this is really an issue, and then you'll have certain inspiration for a certain solution. And this is why this process builds on 3 stages. At first, inspiration, as said, go to the people, talk, try to see where are the issues, and if there are certain issues, or you are just creating or hallucinating certain issues. Maybe you asked an AI and the AI said, yeah, there's a problem here, but in reality or at least in reality of those people, there's none. The second step is ideation, trying to ideate and experience with different ideas that could be implemented in the last stage. Yeah, so we applied HCD, or human-centered design, in FOSS in multiple instances. For once, I had a study on the privacy visualization, trying to improve the communication of privacy aspects of different apps in F-Droid, and which then was implemented in NewStore. And this aspect of privacy is mainly concerned with the user-facing side. So it's mainly meant for users. Furthermore, I also had a study on privacy by design guidelines, which is the developer-facing side. What do we need, at least mostly with focus on the FOSS developers, because a lot of those privacy by design guidelines are put through regulatory instances which didn't give FOSS developers or allowed the FOSS developers to take part at the discussion when those regulations were put in place. Furthermore, we had ideation and inspiration, implementation on the FOSS digital well-being, because considering the lack of accessible FOSS alternatives compared to the options that Google and Apple provide, also the lack of SDKs and APIs for us to implement certain features. So we had always to reach out for the community and ask them, should we implement this feature? Because this feature would need root, for example. So yeah. You would maybe be saying, yeah, nice, but I'm not here for this design thingy. Yeah, I would totally understand you are not a designer maybe, but the certain thing that you can achieve through human-centered design is binding non-contributors in what you should be doing afterwards. So you are trying to reach all those people, motivate them to say their opinion, and maybe, as I said, like you'll get some inspiration into implementing certain features that you didn't thought of, and you would have never thought of as certain, as maybe a specific user with specific use case. So what we can win through all those non-code contributors are ideas, as I said. Furthermore, most of the projects we are involved in are mainly community documented, which takes a lot of the silly stuff, or maybe the stuff that we don't really want to do when we are engaged as volunteers in software. Furthermore, having a community allows you to provide support for anyone who has certain questions, so you don't have to answer all the questions by yourself. And this goes even in a loop, in a certain way, that when you have a community that's engaged and new people come to the community, they feel welcome when where their questions are answered, also by the community. Also, the communication channels were friendly, providing more inclusive atmosphere for the new users or new people engaged in the community. So through all those studies and implementations, we've learned to let people just do what they like to do. Specifically, we are all volunteer in the FOSS community, or mostly, as we've seen, at least in certain statistics, there's like 50% are getting paid for it. I'm not sure, it doesn't reflect my reality. Make decisions transparent for everyone to be able to understand your decisions. It helps avoiding conflict. And furthermore, we have to learn at certain conflict situations to manage our emotions. We are in the FOSS community, and we have really strong opinions. when we talk about privacy, a lot of people means it really hard. Certain people means it a little bit more flexible because they have more tolerance toward other opinions. Furthermore, HCD requires time. So maybe you won't be doing it every month, doing a new cycle of or your iteration to implement HCD for a certain feature or certain question. But maybe this would be also something to learn from engaged people, and maybe corporations should be doing that more often. Just hearing the people and not only the statistics that you get through trackers and so on. Furthermore, we'll be talking about the dark side, as I said, and there we have like a huge selection bias and diversity issue in the community, and we have actually a shortage of or reluctance of certain social demographic groups that are not actively engaged or can't really actively engage in the open source community just in a certain or normal setup. So, as mentioned, we'll be talking about exclusion, and then we have 3 different aspects on the exclusion. The first one is the geopolitical. We have far less contributors from non-free countries, talking about China or Russia, mostly caused by fear of prosecution when you talk or when you put on certain privacy issues into light. And furthermore, certain people are reluctant to communicate, are not feeling safe or not feeling comfortable communicating in English. And to that concern, or to those two concerns, I would encourage you to provide anonymized channels for participation of those groups so they can feel safe when they communicate, and furthermore, respect desired community when you are applying HCD. When people say, I would like that the interview doesn't get recorded, but nevertheless, you are allowed to sum up my ideas, it should be also fine. Furthermore, we should also work on improving community accessibility. There's a lot of translation tools, and it wouldn't help people just to say, we only communicate in English in this group. A better answer would be, okay, here a link to certain translation tools that we consider private. You can use them and translate your questions and come back to us. Maybe there's one community member that can translate the things or at least answer the question if the question is not directed to the developers that don't understand the language. The other part is the societal, and we should be, I hope that it's clear that diverse teams are better teams. Just talking about multi-perspectivity and all those different views that we have, through such diverse team, it's a big win. But we also have to be clear that in FOSS, we have, as already seen, a huge bias considering a mainly male-dominant community. And in that sense, sexism is not something that we see once a year, rather, for some people, it's something that they are facing each year or each day. For once, a study from 2017 found out that push requests by female, or at least female identified person, are 50% accepted compared to the male ones. So this is it for you. Furthermore, we have a lot of, in the communication channels, a lot of misogynic stereotypes that are repeatedly put on every day. So it would be helpful in this area to be intolerance toward the intolerance. So we should not tolerate any type of intolerance or a discriminating behavior in the community. Furthermore, lacking all those resources to moderate the communication, it would be helpful to engage certain persons that have proven to be good in the communication and maybe engage them in those smaller moderation jobs. The last one, last aspect that we would like to talk on under exclusion is the cooperative. Working together is the aim instead of against each other. Whenever you have a certain size of team, then all the things will get too complicated, and then you'll start to ask yourself, or maybe you should start to ask the question about the governance model that fits the project and the group, depending on the side of the team, and how you would like to decide things. Furthermore, you should stick to transparency, and even when finding consensus in certain decisions or certain questions, it shouldn't be it shouldn't be hard to fit on this without having. Yeah, I think the thought went out. Sorry. So I'll move on to the next idea. So what role does non-code contributor or do non-code contributors play in the community is also a question that we have to ask ourselves maybe sometimes from the start. Do they only translate? Do they do documentation? Do we accept maybe designs from the community? Certain designers would like to engage in our projects, and maybe we should just make space for those non-code contributors. So I think the time allows it, right?
We have 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
One thing more to add to Tony's is, if you want to be a welcoming community, you can welcome non-code contributors also, not just for documentation. You have also, I mentioned that before, community council, community management. That is something that's very important for your projects, to have a healthy community. And you don't need to need any coding. You don't need to know any coding for helping with the community management. Yeah, at this place, we thought we split the group into 2 halves. You're sitting like one on the left half, one of the right half, to discuss some topics about, at one side, community governance design. So the questions are not, you have to answer the questions, that's just a guide for you what to think about. What are your ideas, what we might have missed in our talk on the topic of community governance? For example, coming also from your field of in the corporate context, which could be adopted for the FOSS communities. And the same, like Tony talked about exclusion, or I rather prefer to talk about inclusion. What are your experiences there? Either you can talk about amongst each other. We have something like 4 minutes left now, if you want to make the sum up, or just come to the mic and share your ideas. Or are there any ideas?
So
it's not a mandatory program, so.
Is the mic functioning? Yeah. So feel free just to head to the mic and maybe tell us certain experiences, or maybe put on your opinion on the.
Or just raise your question on what we said. So if there are any questions from your end, we shall answer. Yeah, Timo, come up. Maybe we missed something then.
But I have another question. So I have a very small project. It's just starting an open source project, and there are no other guys participating. Yeah. But do you have a tip for a communication channel? I mean, this project is on GitHub. Yeah. I could also move it to other places, but yeah, would you recommend maybe Slack or something like that? So so that I, yeah, have a link to a channel where they can ask me things and stuff like that.
I actually made this experience more than once, starting new projects, and sometimes does your project or is your project an Android and user-facing software, or is it a library?
I have different projects, but I have one with an Android app, and also I want to do it multi-platform, so for a desktop app.
Okay, so at first I would encourage you to head on to the different distribution channels, F-Droid, Easy Android, just at least to get your app to users. Those users then will be asking the question where we can have our discussions or where we can ask our questions. I usually use Matrix and Telegram to communicate with the community. I'm not really fan of both, considering certain values, but it's really worth to go to the community and to go there where they are, and not just wait for them to come to you standing in your signal bubble or whatsoever.
Exactly.
At that place, maybe I add from my experience as outreach member, which is a good idea to maybe. How many of you have heard about the Fediverse already? Just a few. That's you know, Facebook, you know, Twitter, and everything like that. That is called social media. The Fediverse is interoperative on different levels. You have something like Twitter that is called Mastodon, not really comparable, but short message service. You have Instagram as PixelFed maybe, and all those can interact with each other. So if you have a presence in the Fediverse, wherever you choose your presence to be, it depends on what you need. Large blogging, small blogging, whatever. People from the other platforms can reach you as well, and they can ask you questions, and you can respond. You get it from many platforms. So it gives a variety of platforms, and there we are again at diversity.
So you wanted to say something?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye-bye. Other intervention? If not so, we would move to wrap things up. Yeah. So we had the aim to encourage you to engage in FOSS and see it as a fun way to learn new things, experiment also, but also it's a way to build communities and communicate with humans. Similar to all software, we embed our values in our software and FOSS projects, and this is why we have to be aware of all those or problematic sometimes values that bring in, or biases that we bring in our projects, or also in a community. Be aware of the governance model of the project you are working on. Maybe you just started or to contribute to a certain FOSS project, and it would be really helpful to understand the decision mechanics in those communities. Furthermore, also, if you are starting a new project on your own, it would be helpful to see how you plan the development of the governance of this project, if it should be or stay only in your hand, or maybe you will be building a community around it. And as is the aim of human-centered design, keep the focus on the human, not only the user, as statistics and analytics. And an inclusive approach is necessary to maintain and build up an active community. You won't get new people that whenever they join your community, they'll be seeing all the misogynics, things that are said, or racist things that are said in the community. This is why sometimes we have to be intolerant towards the intolerant. So thanks for keeping up, and also thank you for maybe your possibly future contributions to FOSS. We have this QR code for survey to see maybe how you perceived the presentation, and also you can also contact us for further questions. Furthermore, you can download the presentation as a PDF through this other QR code. Thanks.